So unless you've been living under a stone, you know that the end of the MCU's big, huge crossover is coming up. In fact, I've got tickets to see it. I can't believe I do, because evidently they're going for thousands of dollars online, but me, my girlfriend, and two buddies are going to see it. Before I do, though, I'm kind of curious. How close can I get to predicting what's going to happen?
And welcome back to the heart of the stories we tell. I'm Rob, the host, and this is another look deep into what makes a story, a theory on storytelling by a storyteller who believes that every story has merit. And tonight's episode is...
Getting to the heart of Endgame. Robert Downey Jr. threw down the gauntlet, so to speak, when he said that no one would guess how this ended. And I'm going to take him at his word. But judging on what we've seen prior, I think we have a couple of clues of things that are going to happen. But alright, just to recap, in case, again, you were living under a stone, Nick Fury put together a group called the Avengers, and basically he took Earth's mightiest heroes on the day that no one of them would be enough. He did it based on this woman's call sign when she was in the Air Force, Avenger, and all this accumulated in a movie that took course over the entire MCU, when each of the stones we'd seen in previous movies was collected. And snap, we were all heartbroken as half the universe, including half of our heroes, fell and just ceased to be. This entire thing played out over 3 phases, and as phase 3 ends, and we start looking towards what phase 4 is going to be, I've got a few thoughts on that too. But first I want to talk on something the Russos said during the audio commentary, that Stark, specifically Stark, has reached the pinnacle of his armor design. And that's what I'm going to start with, the fact that I think that's a bold-faced lie. But before I do that, let's talk for a second about what I do here. In general, I take apart stories. I examine them, pull them apart, see what makes them tick, and then come up with theories on how and why we tell stories. I do reviews, and I'm going to be reviewing this movie. But in general, what I do is I try to get to the heart of all of the stories we tell. If you want to help us out with that, or you want to join our little community, then of course, the first thing you can do is click that subscribe button. Because what we're going to do right now is talk about Iron Man, and the fact that he's a futurist, and the fact that we even have a few references to other things he's done. And we're going to talk about the fact that he's in the bleeding edge armor right now. More or less. Nanites. And those nanites are very specifically capable of reprogramming themselves and realigning themselves to be whatever he needs. And whatever problem I have with the way they've empowered some of the heroes in the MCU, I will say the fact that he's a futurist, the fact that they went right to one of his most powerful armors, Bleeding Edge, is kind of cool. But it's not really the height of his capability. And it's also not the only clue we get about what he's capable of, because only 2 of our heroes were capable of actually inflicting any sort of damage whatsoever. Now, Thanos kind of pokes a little fun at Stark. All that effort for 1 drop of blood. But keep in mind, with the Power Stone active, it should be impossible to draw blood from him. The fact that Stark was able to is because Stark's armor is pretty huge. And of course that brings us to the fact of what Ivan Vanko said to him. What happens when you make God bleed? The sharks come, and people cease to believe in him. But again, they talk about in the audio commentary that this was Stark at his best. The armor that was the pinnacle. But it's really not. It's the pinnacle of what he could do right now in Infinity War. But it's not the pinnacle of what he can theoretically do in the next movie. And I'm going to break down a couple of things for that. But first and foremost is the fact that he has very little to no access to vibranium. He has no access to Uru, which is the hammer Thor has. And he has no access to one of the most powerful things in the MCU, the Pym particle. Very specifically, Pym said no Stark would ever get it until he was over his dead body. Hey, funny thing, Pym got dusted, and Ant-Man's bringing Stark a whole bunch of Pym particles. And of course, what could you do with Pym particles? Well, You could carry a Hulkbuster with you, or an entire house party with you. And if at his max right now he could make Thanos bleed, what could he do if he had a whole army of animated nanite soldiers? Back in Avengers 2, Age of Ultron, he was able to call down the Hulkbuster armor, Veronica, from a satellite. What if he could just carry that whole satellite, all of the Hulkbuster components in his pocket? What if he could carry an extra Spider-Man suit there too, just in case Pete needs an upgrade, or Cap, or anyone else? Those Pym particles from Hank Pym are a huge upgrade. And that's before we start talking about this hammer, and the fact that through Biavowel, place where the dwarves live, he has access to might as well be magic technology. Imagine him redesigning the nanites so that we'll go with 25% of them are made of vibranium, and as such can absorb kinetic energy the same way that Black Panther's suit can. And 25% of them are made up of Uru, and the other half are still made up of the normal stuff his Iron Man suit is made up of. Just that alone would allow him to channel things. And the fact that his arc reactor is based on technology based on the Tesseract, and we've already seen him absorb all sorts of energy, including Thor's Thunderbolt. And on top of that, we've seen him be able to make a shield with his normal armor, capable of taking a full power blast from the Power Stone. A Thanos Buster armor is not out of the question. And yes, that would be specialized, but it would be even more impressive. And all of this I bring up because this armor I've been showing here is what happens when the Bleeding Edge armor got merged with Uru tech and was given access to Asgard. It became the Destroyer armor. So I think there's a bit more going on, but there's a lot more to this. The story has to unfold a little bit weirdly. And here's where my other thoughts go. Back when I saw the end of Ant-Man 2, this is what I thought of. In the movie, they make a big deal about the fact that Cassie wants to be a superhero. Well, in the comics, she is one. She's Stature of the Young Avengers. And the Young Avengers could very much play into this. Imagine if Ant-Man got thrown into the future by a time vortex, where he comes out in a time post everything going wrong, and we keep cutting back and forth between what's going on now and what's going on then. We could even see the same events play out differently a second time. But here's the important part. In this future, the Young Avengers, which would include my personal favorite, Patriot, would want to try to send him back in time. And there's only one person who could possibly be smart enough to do that. Their version of Iron Man, Iron Lad. And I'd have everyone keep calling him K. Okay? But not say what his name actually is. Because Iron Lad is actually Kang the Conqueror, who has ties to both X-Men and Fox other franchise, Fantastic Four, that we've now learned is going to be active in Phase 4, although maybe not right away. And I would do this entire thing where Kang is apprehensive. He's like, look, I don't want to send someone. I don't want to mess with time travel. Do you know what that could mean for me? But finally, they use Iron Lad to send him back in time, and he tells him, the way he convinces him is, if through time travel you can save lives and make the world better, and you don't, that makes you the villain. And then just drop that. Forget that. Go back, have them put together the new force, have them be capable of stopping Thanos, destroying the Infinity Gems or locking them away, whatever. And then you're like, okay, so I guess this is over, right? Well, not quite. Because my end credit scene concept would be Kang watching as all of his world slowly vanishes, finally ending up with the Spider-Woman of that world, telling him, Kang, I don't want to go, and have him jump back in time to try to stop his world from ceasing to be in what is a mirror of the end of this one. It could be cool, and it even has other possibilities, because see, everyone's like, oh, well then we'd have Kang the Conqueror as our Phase 5 villain. Maybe. We could use Kang to introduce Apocalypse, too. Let's not forget, Kang was the king of Egypt when Enebenser came about and started his rise to power. And I'm sure if we're going to use X-Men, we're going to want to use someone like Apocalypse. But Kang has a long history of being used multiple ways through multiple medias. And we could use him to tie in with someone like Doom. And we could very slowly build what I think could be an interesting world. Now, of course, that means using X-Men properties, and I am notoriously famous for not wanting the X-Men tied into the MCU. And this right here is why. We darken the entire MCU when we try to make mutants fit into the world, because they don't. In a world where you are, oh, cool, we all think Captain America is awesome. Oh, cool, we think Iron Man is awesome. Mutants being hated and feared is weird. Why, in a world where we're trying to duplicate super soldiers, would we not want to recruit super soldiers? Why isn't Mystique targeted by every single... Alright, you know what? Never mind. X-Men are coming either way. The story I would like to see would be an amalgam of Apocalypse's The 12 and the animated universe's version of it, which was called Beyond Good and Evil. The idea that Apocalypse would be also using a bit of time travel, but not necessarily even time travel, but just wanting to pull together the most powerful mutants to siphon their power and become all powerful. And, that could be a pretty cool story, too. The other thing I really like, that I think we could play around with, is we could use Doctor Strange to introduce the next part of that. Have the Eternals movie that we know they're working on kind of throw a hint at mutants, and then have the Doctor Strange movie have a subplot. My personal preference would be give Scarlet Witch this, have her trying to recover a magic ring that was taken from the ruins of the London Sanctuary, and Doctor Strange be helping her. Now, again, I'm biased. I really want to see Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange team up, but there was an animated appearance where there was an entire door that you needed 3 rings put on a rod to open, and Ozymandias did that to unlock Apocalypse. And you could tie this in by saying that Kang locked him away all those years ago. Imagine him telling her that the manipulation of power that she's doing instinctively is the same as his magic. And imagine the reveal of Ozymandias and Apocalypse at the end. It would be a great way to tie in to things that we all know are coming. Things like Cable and Bishop, and again, just in general, the X-Men. But at the same time, I wouldn't be too upset if I was wrong about this. But that's the way I would take it. And then we could even do stuff like, with all the time travel, something like the Time Variance Authority. But that's another video for another day. For now, I want to say one last thing that I want to see, and this is something that would have to be an end credit scene. But since they now have access, I would love to see Deadpool show up for a last-minute joke. I'm sure Ryan Reynolds would be more than happy to record himself in this suit, being like, "Oh, come on! It took forever for the studios to get their stuff together. Did I really miss it?" Oh. And I mean, that alone would make an awesome end credit scene. But that's my thoughts. I wonder what you think are coming. And as you can hear, that's my dog scratching to go out. So I guess I'm going to end this video and ask what you think should come up next. And where you want to see Phase 4. And of course, even more importantly, if you could like and share this video, and subscribe if you haven't already. And of course, let me give this chance a big shout out thank you to all of my Patreons. And just in general, remind you that as we explore the heart of the stories we tell, even when we get it wrong, it opens up a little bit of ourselves, our story, and what we think is going to happen next. Now, I'm recording this before I saw the movie, but I'll be referencing it in my review. Have a good night, and thanks for watching.